Air dry clay projects can be so intimidating. At least to me, I think I still don't have the skill. They crack, they take a lot of time, they're super messy, a lot of things. But I've found that small air dry clay projects are just as satisfying and they're easier to make. So, because I have a package of clay left over from a previous video from a craft kit by Mariah Elizabeth, I thought I would use it all making small clay projects that I've been really wanted to try my hands on. And today I want to share those with you. So let's open the clay and get creative.
Here's the package of clay. The ideas I'm sharing today is stuff I've stumbled upon Pinterest that I have really liked and wanted to give a go. This first idea is so much fun. I did want to make it as is, but now I've decided to change it because I have a different idea. I am making the fried egg into a magnet, and instead of having the yolk be a candle, I'm sculpting a rendered version of my character Yolki for the middle. So to start, I'm flattening out a bit of clay with an uneven shape. This is the base for our egg. I am making it a little bit thin since in my version it will be a magnet and I don't want it to be too heavy. Then I'm using my clay tools to remove the material from the center to allow for the yolk, or in this case Yolki, to sit in there. With the indentation ready, I grab a little ball of clay and I'm trying to shape it like a round Yolki. So Yolki is going through a process. I recently redesigned him to become a blob, and now I think the big floppy ears fit his Yolkiness much better. So I've started to sketch different versions of him, and today I'm trusting the circular shape. It is not the best opportunity to experiment since this is such a tiny Yolki, but since he was created tiny in the first place, I thought, why not? Because it is tiny, I'm struggling to sculpt it to match my sketches, so it will probably need more work. But hey, all famous characters get a little touched up through the years. And also, in this case, you get a say in Yolki's appearance because I left a poll on my posts for you to choose what your favorite Yolki is. I've never used this clay before. It dries fast and the texture feels a little papery, like paper mache almost, different to all of the clays I'm used to working with. So I have to say I didn't have trouble attaching parts to it. I mean, it's not like I'm a pro with clay. You can check Dye's channel for that. But I feel I struggled a bit more than usual. Regardless, these are very simple things to make with clay, so of course eventually I got there. Not really looking like a spherical yolk, but he fits in there. For both parts to work together, I am going to use magnets, so I push them into the clay so they would leave marks and I can glue them into those later. I added tiny arms to Yolki and more magnets to the back of the white, and I let it dry. On the next day, it was time to paint. I still have the perfect Yolki color mix from painting it as a blob, so it was pretty straightforward, yellow and white. And yeah, I know the clay dried whitish, but it's not that white, so we are painting the egg white too, with white. I am taking a tiny bit of brown and yellow and rubbing it along the edges to get a bit of that fried egg burn. Now to give Yolki a little more love with a gradient for its belly. And I really like him with huge rosy cheeks, but at this scale, painting them with the marker proved challenging and showed me that my proportions were wrong. So when I drew the face, something was off. No worries, I just had to paint over it and try again. And the second time went, let's say better. And I also used the acrylic markers to make the burnt edge more noticeable. Then a nice layer of gloss and it's done. Honestly, it's not perfect because I forgot to account for the thickness of the magnets when sculpting. And now he doesn't really look like he's in there with the egg, but on there. And that bums me out. I definitely need to try this again. It still looks cute hanging from my shelves, but yeah, I want him to belong more. So I guess this means that this wasn't his egg white either, and that Yolki remains homeless. He is still very much a wanderer searching for rainbows. So we're going to move on. I saw these and immediately got obsessed. They are so cute. I think they could be amazing at any scale, but we're going to try the tiny version. I was thinking a tiny bag for paperclip storage. To start, I'm going to flatten some clay, and I'm going to try to do that evenly by using a roller and these two acrylic pieces on either side. Now that I have a flat, even slab, I'm going to draw the bag on it, as I imagine it would look like if I cut the top apart and lay it flat. The way I see it, if I cut this up and fold it up, it will create that little back shape. So I'm just cutting this one to give it a try and mark the fold so it works better. And yeah, I think I got it. So then all I needed to make were the two side panels so that the back closed. I used the piece I already had to measure, or actually to eyeball the size, and cut the side panels. And now I need to attach these. And I'm worried because I'm having problems with attaching this clay. As you can see, I'm trying to create a little bit of slip to the side here, but it's not working like my usual clay at all. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time. This new clay is really testing my skills. I'm thinking maybe what I need to do is let the clay harden for just a bit, and then it would be easier to form and polish the back. So I left it to the side for a bit, and I'm coming back to it, trying to make it look better by smoothing and sculpting, and it's not working. It's just looking bad, and it's cracking and cracking. Like, I don't know what's wrong with this. I don't think it's gonna work. So I have to be honest, I got frustrated and trashed this one. You're gonna see that later. For now, let me share that at the end of the day, I decided to give it another go, but with foam clay. I thought it might be easier since foam clay just sticks to itself. That would make joining the sides easier. Same process, I rolled the slab, trying to make it as even as possible. And again, I cut the first part of the back out with the knife. Here, the clay was super fresh, so every time I cut, it would pull through. But see, if I press it together, it glues onto itself, and then I can put something in the middle so it doesn't collapse. So I have a plan, and I'm trying for a second time, made the slab again, and I was more careful making the cuts. Then I had to leave for a couple of hours because I had stuff to do, so I covered it with plastic, and when I came back to it, it was still pliable, it was still soft, but it hardened just a bit, and that actually made it easier to handle. So I rolled more clay for the sides, and then it was really easy for me to just push the sides next to the bag, and everything just attached. Easy. Yeah, maybe I'll do a bigger bag one day with this foam clay because it works so much better for me. Now, the top parts would not stick. They had dried way too much and were not reactivating with water, but that was an easy fix. I simply grabbed a tiny bit of extra foam clay and I used it as glue, pushing both parts together with it in the middle. And I didn't even need to place something inside it to dry. It held itself up. Now it's fully dried, so I'm going to cut the excess from the handles with a pair of scissors. I love foam clay, it's so flexible. And it's time to paint it. I wanted to paint my bag with stripes, so I started to do a line, but then I realized it was better for me to paint the whole background first, and then come back to it and draw the lines with acrylic markers. I wanted the stripes in rainbow order to either side, starting with pink on the center, and I ran out of space for the remaining colors. I always do, so I didn't have space in the front of the bag, so I added the rest of the colors to the side. It's cute, but a little plain. So I drew a couple of hearts on the fronts, and then I thought maybe what I needed was a little bit of contrast, so I added white by drawing a thin white line on top of all of the colorful lines and outlining the hearts. A little varnish and done. I think I made the opening too narrow to comfortably have the paper clips in there and take them out. So just for show, here it is with a few flowers. It's pretty cute. Definitely an idea worth revisiting at a different scale. And also you can paint these in so many ways. Moving on to our next little clay creation, and I've been wanting to make one of these for when I have people over. Super simple toothpick holder. I've made one before for my studio, but I think this would be cuter and more elevated in a cheese platter for guests. I'm just gonna do one massive omelet instead of stacking a couple, so it's as simple as it gets. Rolled a ball, turned it into an oval, and then sculpt or push in 2 circles at either end. Then I just kept fiddling with it until it was a little bit neater. Fun fact, I hate olives, hate them so much. I cannot stand the taste, but this is a cute concept, and it's the second time on this channel I made cute art from olives, which I hate. They're disgusting. Of course, next day it had hardened and had some cracks, but they're inside, so I think we're gonna be okay. And it's such an easy paint job, just green. So I mixed some to get the right shade, and I didn't quite like that. So I added a second layer with another darker green that I had already at home, but that one was way too dark. So I mixed in more light green onto it and I painted a third layer, which was the perfect color. Afterwards, I just used acrylic markers to paint the peppers inside. I needed a lot of layers for the red to be opaque, but it was much easier still to paint these with a marker than using a paintbrush. And of course, finally, I'm also varnishing this one, and here it is. It's so simple, but so useful and cute. Sometimes it is truly the simplest of things. It was fun to make, and it's such a win. Next, I've had this crab pinned for ages. So cute, I want one to hold my brushes. Again, something simple. I'm just modeling the clay into like a rock shape, and honestly, I think this clay works better with the simpler shapes, so it's so papery. I don't love the clay, sorry. But regardless, I made the body for the crab and then rolled out a bunch of little pieces for the 6 legs and the 4 parts to make the claws. I really gave it my all to attach these. The legs were a little bit easier because since they go on the bottom, I was able to scrape the clay to merge together. And then I had to attach the little claws. I pushed in the clay to make room for them, attached them, and they seem super wobbly already. So I rolled some thin coils of clay, put them around the joints, and then went ahead and molded everything together. Super simple and straightforward. Simple design. Maybe that gave me the room to do the joints this way. With the other things, I was more focused on the shape of the thing, so I forgot to join pieces properly. I kept it simple again for the painting, just red straight out of the tube. I want an actual little red crab. I had needed a couple of layers, I think it was 3 or 4 for the paint to be even, but that's easy peasy. Then I used acrylic markers to draw the eyes. I thought this is how I would give it some personality, big eyes. And I also thought about adding little dots, but they didn't look right. So the orange just looks cute on the cheeks, I think. I painted over the marks and then let them peep through just a little bit for texture. Worked a little bit more on the eyes, gave him eyebrows, varnished, and done. I am obsessed with it holding my brush. It's just too cute. Next, this is something I've been wanting to do for a long while. I'm making one of these cake toppers that hold a single candle, and I want to make a miniature cake. So I rolled out my clay and started making it, but again, with this clay, it's just, I don't know, maybe it's dried too much now, or it's simply not as friendly as the one I'm used to use, or maybe it has a learning curve. Maybe it's just me, I don't know, but I made a cylinder, tried to make space for the candle, and then add icing and make it look like a cake. Wow, that's really bad. Maybe I could have rescued this with paint, but I didn't want to risk it, so I trashed it. And I also, that was when I trashed the little shopping bag, I was letting dry a bit, and I used all of the clay that I had left. To play it safe, I sculpted a character, which is giving way too much credit to how I made it because it's basically just a ball of clay that I tapered a bit. Then I added arms to it so that it would look like it's holding the candle, and I pushed a hole in between the arms and its body so that the handle could actually rest there. Then I gave it a little tail, added some large fluffy ears falling on its back. Yes, again, I like my bunnies with big ears. And finally, I sculpted a tiny cone and put it on its head as a little hat. Did my best to attach all of these pieces properly, but on the next day it had dried and the arms had fallen out. No biggie, glued them back and started painting. I'm painting this bunny with yellow because I want him to be a blueberry lemon dessert bunny because I'm celebrating a friend's birthday in a month or so, and I want everything to be yellow and blue. I'll share the celebration on my Instagram stories if you're interested within a month or so. Once everything was painted with the light yellow, I grabbed a yellow acrylic marker and drew on it to decide on the bunny's design, but I had trouble figuring out how to paint a character, so I brought one of my sketchbooks in and I figured out what I wanted to do with a flat drawing, much easier. I figured out where I wanted the eyes to be in relation to the candle, how to add color, etc. And I also decided that the whole bottom, a thick bottom, would be a thick crust. And that I would have drizzle on top of its head, but also on its ears. I decided to make the tail into a blueberry and to use the same color for the birthday hat. I'm doing everything with acrylic markers now because it's easier to paint something this size with them. Then I decided the ears needed to be a darker yellow to show up more and used that same shade for its cheeks. White for the drizzle on top, and then I glued the tail back on. Drew its eyes, nose, and whiskers, and I'm not sure why, but I made the arms lighter. Decorated the head with lines and with a tiny pom-pom that I glue on, and I drew a bunch of sprinkles on top of the white drizzle. It dried, I varnished it, and here it is. here it is holding a little candle. It looks so cute. I can't wait to show it to my friends. And actually, I'm going to call this bunny Ellie, since that's my friend's name who I'll be celebrating. I'm probably going to revisit and redesign it because I think the idea is worth polishing a little bit and making it better without the limitations of this clay. And yeah, with that, I hope you enjoyed all of the little things we made today and that you're having the most wonderful day. I'll see you next Friday with a brand new video. Bye!